All right. So the question was asked on Thursday. About what would I change if I wanted to have a 16 column instead of a 12 column? And I said the 12 column was the default. If you want to change it, you actually have to go in and customize this like we did when we downloaded the thing in the first place. And down here at the bottom, you can change the grid system, how many columns you want. So if I want to change that to 16, I'd change that to 16 and edit all of these. I can change the colors and all kinds of stuff and download a new version of the Twitter Bootstrap. If you don't want to do that, you can download the original binary version of it, which is this version, or when we created a new project in PHP Storm, it downloaded all that for you, but it uses a different compiling CSS program. Instead of Sass, it uses a program called Less, which is very similar. It has variables and very similar to that. But the reason I use Sass is because Rails has adopted that as their standard, and so why do I want to learn another thing for no reason? So, yeah, I haven't. Unless somebody's going to pay me to learn it, I'm not going to go do it. So, yeah, give me $1. Okay, good. That's about worth it, right? So that was kind of where we left off. I want to go through and start using some of these classes. This is our basic HTML5 template, and we'll close this down so I have more room. And we can start to look at this. This is, I added this div, and I gave it the class of row responsive, and then I added some stuff in between it. Now, what we started talking about was whenever I have divs that I want to have on the same line, I have to put them in a surrounding row. So a row contains something, all right? A bunch of other divs, perhaps. And this span, what this means is it's not the HTML span tag. What that means is that this class is going to span 2 of the 12 columns. And then the next div is going to span 2 of the 12 columns. And then the next div is going to span 8 of the 12 columns. So if this is in a wider range like this, you can see that difference. This div and this div are the same size. And then I come over to this one. This is spanning 8 columns. So if I add all those up, 8 plus 2 is what? 12. So I always have to have these add up to 12 inside of a row. A row has to add up to 12. Then you're going to start to have problems. I could make this span 12, and it might look right, but you're going to have problems when you put more and more stuff in here. It tries to be as nice as possible for you, but you're better off if you make sure that these numbers add up correctly. All right? If I nest these, if I have another, let's put something inside of my span 8, and I want those to be responsive as well. I can put another span inside of here. And what we have to remember is that each span is responsive on its own. Each span is based on percentages. So each div, if I'm going to have these spans here, have to add up to what number do you think now? No. They add up to 12 always. Always 12. So I'd have to make these, let's see what it looks like. See, each one of those are inside of there. I'd have to make these actually be what to add up to 12? Very good. See, you never thought math would come in handy. So it might look the same, but again, the values should be correct and add up to the right number. All right, so when I nest them, that's what you do. Now, we also have the option of instead of having something, I can just offset. I can have a div that is an offset, and we use the word offset with a number, and you see PHP Storm has offsets of 1 through 12. And if I want to offset these and have them a span on each side here, I mean a div on each side, 2 columns, with nothing in the middle, what would I make my offset size? 4, right? Again, it's got to add up to 12. Isn't that crazy math? You might have to use a calculator here. So it didn't reload, it looks like. All right, so it did something. It did the offset. It did it. Seems like it's wrong to me, but yeah, this is the offset. And because I have my border around all the divs, that's what it is. But it seems like that should fit inside of there. I bet if I change this. Yeah, so that's not good. So again, I'm not a designer. I'm not going to mess with that. But that's how you do the different divs inside of each other. Pardon me? No, it's supposed to add up to 12 because it's all based on percentages again.
Well, see, you've got 2 through, and then
In here?
And then within the 8, you've got those 3 items. Seems like they should add up to 8.
Like a non-breaking space.
Yeah, you would think so, but that's not the case because everything's based on a percentage. There we go. So that kind of worked, but not. Yeah. Yeah, probably. Anyway, in nested ones have to add up to 12 still. It talks about that in the documentation. If you go, this is where you want to be in the base CSS. And then also in the components, these are the two big ones. I think the nesting is actually in here, though. It could be. Here it is. So this is fluid grids utilize nesting differently. Each nested level of columns should add up to 12. This because the fluid grid uses percentages, not pixels. So this is this one and this one add up to 12. This one and this one add up to 12, and this one is 12. So they are nested correctly. That's how they have to do that. All right, so that's nesting. Any questions on that? Other than it not working, I'm not going to do nesting, just because I don't want to figure out the problem there. So here's my stuff. If I add more stuff in here, like a lot of.
You know, it was probably the extra text in that div that was causing the problems.
Yeah, it could be. If I put a lot of stuff in here, it flows down a column like you'd think it should, right? So these columns are going to work just like that. Or I can set heights on the columns. You know, that's just standard CSS again. All right, so let's move on. If I want, they suggest that I put everything into a container called a fluid container. And so I'm going to put my entire site and give it a class of, I lost it, equals, container fluid, and put all of that around there so that my entire thing, my entire website is surrounded by this container. So this is, you can see that it's responsive to the entire width of my browser, and then everything else is inside of that. Now, if I wanted to, I could take that, take this row and add a class to it and change its size and give it a margin and center it and do all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. Never done that. take this div out. It works more or less the same. More or less the same, but I don't want to do that. All right? So inside of this now is, oops. Let's see, what's the shortcut for this here? And going back from Windows to Mac, I want to reformat everything. Control-Alt-L. All right, and so now my container fluid container contains a div, and I'm going to add some more divs inside of here, etc. All right. So I'm going to change this now to have just two, so we'll have like a two-column layout. I'll have a span of a 4 and an 8. And now I've got a nice little two-column layout. Let's put a header above that. And a header is just a normal div, right? Except in HTML5 is called header. So I can add classes to this as well. And I'm going to have another row, fluid, here. And I might say, welcome to my site, and maybe put that around some, the shortcuts are so different. Put some H1 tags around that. All right, so now I have my header at the top and my two-column page underneath that. Isn't that cool? Say yes, that's cool. I didn't say it's pretty. That's right. So we need a footer. So let's add a footer. I might do the same thing. I'm going to have a footer class. I mean a footer object, and I'm going to give it a class of a container fluid as well. And I might put my copyright down here, whatever I'm going to do. Wow, I'm in the 19th century, really? Oh, right, sorry. That's what I said. So it's showing up inside of there, only does it look right if I shrink it down. So how might I fix that if I want that to be outside of that? Put it below my thing, right? So I could put this all the way underneath here, and I would probably, I'm going to shrink all this down, I could probably put my header outside of that as well, and I think that'll look better. And now I've got my footer and my header on top of my responsive two-column system here. All right? Any questions on that? Pretty simple stuff. So let's add a navbar. We can add a navbar. What is the style in right? In HTML5, it's a nav. So I'm going to put it outside of my two-column system, and we're going to give it a class of, what do you think? Navbar. All right, we'll give it navbar for now. And how do we build navs? We put a bunch of ULs, right? ULs, yes, right, exactly right. That's what I said. So let's give this a fluid row as well, row-fluid, and the class of navbar. So You probably haven't done a lot of this, but you can give two classes just by separating spaces, and both of these classes will be applied to this element. Yes? You can have as many as you want, actually. All right, so let's add some, let's do a UL. And let's give this guy a class of nav. And we need a bunch of LIs with maybe some A tags in them, right? Because this is where your nav is. We're going to go somewhere, and we're going to have something like home. I only want 4. Home, products, blog, contact us. All right, so we reload our page. And now I've got a nice, because I gave it those classes, it already styled it as a navbar, made it horizontal instead of the standard UL, took off the little bullets, did all that stuff for me. And these are nice and responsive navs, all right, to a point. We can't get away from media queries completely, but we can do some stuff. It doesn't break at this point, right? All right, isn't that cool? Absolutely, yes. And in this case, what I've done is, if you look at that, I have my main CSS, which is my own custom CSS, and the Bootstrap CSS. So in my main file, I have my own little styles, and that's why all my borders have a blue border around them.
Make sure they always plug yours after.
Right, right. All right, so any questions on that so far? I've got a nice little nav. Isn't that cool? So here, we'll get there. Relax. We'll get there. Relax. Settle down. So the other nice thing is that they have some built-in icons, all right? And these are, if I look at these, let me zoom it up. It won't let me zoom up. Really? There we go. All right, so these are icons, and what does this checkerboard pattern mean? Transparent. Very good. You do remember your Photoshop a little bit. So these are icons, and notice they're all in a grid structure, right? So I could draw straight lines and separate these like an Excel spreadsheet. Each one would be in its own cell. And so a sprite is taking a large image of all of these little pictures here and using CSS to only display a portion of this picture. So why would that be useful?
Because the picture's already loaded.
Right. I do one TCP connection to go get the picture. I download it, and I never have to make another request back to the server to get all these little pictures, right? These icons are 32 by 32 or something really small. The overhead of making a connection through the web is bigger than the picture itself. So what they do now is through CSS, they can open a little port to only show this magnifying glass, for instance. So if we look at that to show you an example, let's put an icon before my home, all right? And we typically use some inline style, like an I tag or a B tag, since I is typically what? Italic, right? But it's like a span tag, right? Its properties are such that it's in line with the rest of the code. It's not a block level element. Because it takes more characters, right? So an I tag is just simple. I can then apply a class, and it's got all of these icons in here, and they're all prefixed by the word icon. Okay, so all of these are styles, and I want to pick the home icon. All right, and then I just close my I tag, and if I reload this now, I've got a nice little home right next to my home tag here. Well, we'll fix that in a minute. All right, it's near it, right? It's okay. I can put this, so I can also put this inside the A tag. All right, does that make you happier? Look at that. So now the icon stays with it. It's got a nice little picture. And let's go look at the CSS. It links, right, exactly right. So let's go look at the CSS for the icon style. If I look up icon dash home, you can see that it sets this background position to that picture, and it offsets it a little bit. And the size of this is inherited from this other icon. It sets the margins and all this other kind of stuff. And the size of it, and it's like moving a little window around that image. So, or you could think of it, the background image is moving back and forth underneath a hole in the paper, right? And so if you position it just right, you can see just the little home icon button right underneath that hole. So these are really powerful, saves a lot of space, a lot of time, a lot of download time. So let's add some more. These are pretty cool. Let's add a bunch of them. Class equals icon dash, what did I have for my products? A book. I had a book. That's why it didn't auto do it for me. So let's do some more. And then my blog, I might have, there's hundreds of these little icons, so I did a book. Oh no, what did I do for, I did the same thing, I don't know, doesn't matter. And then this one I did a pencil. Let's do something different. Camera, iClose, file, globe, how about globe? All right, reload my page. And I've got these nice little icons next to it. Isn't that cool? Without hardly any HTML or CSS, I've got a nice little icon next to each one of them. Yeah, I bet. I bet I will. All right.
Just to annoy me, copy paste that icon thing in like 75 places on your website. Use every one of those icons on your homepage just so you can use the entire sheet. Is it possible to put it in the image tag?
Yeah, you can put it anywhere. Why would I want it in an image tag?
That'd be funny though. If I use that,
I was trying to do that the other day. I ran into a little issue. That doesn't validate. If you have the searches.
See? Got a little arrow.
It doesn't
What's wrong with that?
it won't validate because the image needs an SRC.
Oh, well, you just say source equals.
Alright, now
That looks fine.
If there's nothing to the source, it won't load anything.
Yeah, it doesn't load anything.
That,
Why would I want to do that?
your huge image tag there is bigger than the
Right,
class.
right. Why would I want that? I would never want to do that. I would just make that an I if I wanted. Anyway, you're off topic. Let's move on and make my navbar. Remember when we looked at this, the Bootstrap navbar, how it changed to this little pull down at some point? And if I'm large enough, it actually turned into a navbar. So if I want to get that type of functionality, I have to make my navbar better. It's got to have some more divs and some more classes associated with it. So that's all defined in the components side over here. If I look at navs and navbar, it talks about how to make these into responsive site. And for this, we need some jQuery to actually change some stuff. But let's do the HTML. I'm already loading my jQuery down at the bottom. Remember, why did we load JavaScript at the bottom?
Because it's not necessary until the entire page loads.
Right, and so we're saving overall loading time by doing that. Our site is more responsive.
Put it like asynchronously or something.
Say that again?
Can't you put it as like asynchronously?
Yeah, you can set up
Yeah.
parameters
Instead of
async and we'll
Yes. But again, I want to give precedence to all the images and all that other stuff to download first, because I don't need this. So whether I do it async or not, I want it at the bottom. All right, so let's make our navbar better. So I'm going to change this to a navbar class only and make some more divs in here. So I'm going to have a div, and this is required for that pull down responsive stuff. And we want a navbar dash inner. And then we want, this gets a little complicated. So then we want a div with a class of container fluid. And this is all in the docs, so you could go look it up yourself if you want, if you don't believe me. And then we need to define that button that's going to be on the right. Let's see if this is a lot of typing. Let's see if I can find it over here. I didn't see it right off the hand. I should have written a little link for it. No, not quite. Not quite. I don't see it now. I think that's what I did. I went to these examples here. Let's show you how I got it. So this is the example with the navbar that switches, and I looked at the source. And I found their nav, and this is their navbar. So I copied this, basically. So let's copy that and replace it. And you'll see the structure. I still have my LI in here, and I have my different pieces. I could put my little icons back in here for my home button. Class equals icon home. And when I reload this, my page, then here's my navbar at the top, and it switches to a pull-down menu with my little icon there. Isn't that cool? And it leaves my icon up here. So this is, without getting into JavaScript yet, these are required for the jQuery collapsing action that happens when I click on this button. And we'll get into that in the next week or so. So this defines what it looks like if you have it open. And then this defines what it looks like. It uses this in both cases, whether it's collapsed or not. All right. And then another thing that's cool about this is they have this logged in as over here, and that's in the navbar. They have this logged in as, and they added this class called pull right. What do you think that does? Right, it floats it to the right. If I take that off, it leaves it out to the left, right? It's doing a flow right, exactly right. So those are some cool classes built into the Twitter Bootstrap I can add to anything, and it does what it says. It pulls that element to the right. All right, isn't that cool? So now I would probably want my nav, in this case, I'm going to put it above my header, just so it looks better since it's a top kind of a nav here. It stays there all the time. It's positioned. It's not floating, which is why my welcome to my site goes up underneath it. So how would I fix that? Put a margin on my top welcome, right? My header. So
Actually, no, you don't even have to do that. Just in your main, make header have a margin on it. Oh, you're so dirty.
Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
That's so dirty.
Obviously, I'd put that in my style sheet, right? So I would put this in my, that's an inline style. That's a no-no. I'm going to put that in my main. I'm going to put it in my header. Oh, fine. You guys are going to whine about it. There you go. And I put a semicolon. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Beautiful right there. And I might, at some point, one of these media queries take that off so that I don't have that space here. Right? At some point.
Because all the LI units.
Right. They changed. They changed right here. So at that media query, I would probably take that off. So, all right. Wow, we ran out of time. So I want to talk about some buttons and some other features that are pretty cool with the Bootstrap tomorrow, and then we'll call that good, and we'll work on starting jQuery. All right. Any questions?